Hello, welcome to The Honest Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. This is going to be a look at all of the stats that we've been able to collect over the past 3 months while the latest Battle Scroll and also, in fact, GHB has been in effect. Now, obviously, with the Battle Scroll coming out the video before I made this video, this means this is a look at what happened versus a look at what is happening. But hopefully, I'm making this video in post because I think this will give us some good context for why maybe we saw some of those points changes, and also maybe what point changes Games Workshop could make, or also maybe why the meta is the way that it is. There's lots of really interesting data here. And like every time I've made one of these videos, really the data should inform your opinion. It shouldn't just like solely be your opinion, of course. Some people are not going to listen to that and they're just going to immediately run with the gossip. But there we go. Anyway, I hope this is informative. Let me know if it is. Leave a comment on what you think about the information. Feel free to say, I don't agree with your interpretation of the information, Rob. Just get hot off the press and enjoy yourselves. I'm hanging out with this Twitch chat, so you might see me talking to them time to time as we go through this. So here we go. And also, before we go any further, a massive shout out to Warhammer Rob, who does all of this data and collects all of it. And if you are in our Discord, you'll be able to reach him personally. He's protected. He's in the Discord only. He's protected, and you can talk to him about some stuff if you want to. So let's have a look at the first bit of data. The first bit of data that we're going to look at is kind of the health of the game, and actually some amazing news off the top rope, like a swanton bomb of joy, is that Age of Sigmar is healthier than it was last year. What do I mean by this? Well, thanks to Rob for saying, an increase in the number of events and players. You have about 16 more events than we did this time last year, and about 23% more players than we did last year. Now, a couple of things on this. It could just be that several of those smaller communities might have started to realize that they need to use BCP, because Games Workshop have been using this system of making kind of people use BCP. So it might be that we're getting more reporting more than we are getting more players. But ultimately, turning up in 2-day events playing worldwide, we have got a 23% more people, 16 more events, which I think is amazing. In addition to that, it's worth noting that those events are getting smaller as well, but we'll kind of come to that information in a moment. We collect tournament data from 5-round events, 5+ round events, probably I should say. 22 countries now. Like, the AOS map is looking really good. Really good. I especially really enjoy that we've started to get a big kind of like Asia group. Obviously, shout out to everyone in the Philippines. They've been OGs for a long time. We've started to get more events reporting from China, which is nice. We've started to hit the global south. We're in Bolivia. I know that we had also an event in Mexico as well. We've got Australia, New Zealand, all rocking in, and then we got many parts of Europe as well. So it really is a global community of people playing Age of Sigmar, which I think, again, is great. It really brings a lot of people together, and I think that's one of the greatest things about hobbies. I've been lucky enough to be able to travel all around the world talking about Age of Sigmar, hanging out with people doing Age of Sigmar, playing Age of Sigmar, and it's really nice to know that like there's this thing that connects all of us, which I think is wicked. So yeah, we record from 9 different websites, more than anyone else, BCP, Stats and Ladders, and the reason is because we try and take in as much data as we can, get the best information we can. 129 events, a list of the events included will be published on the Discord. 3,000 unique players, 9,300 games. So 3,000 unique players worldwide. This is only at 2-day events, or 5-round events, or 5+ round events, which means that doesn't include the people who are only 1-day players. Like, they only go to like what they call RTTs, so 1-dayers, like a 3-round 1-day event. They don't include your mates who just only play at the local club and they never go to a big ticket event. That's not what they do. Doesn't include all the people who just play in their garages with their, their partner, their dad, their son, their daughter, like whoever, or your friend, whatever it might be. So actually, the actual player base is massive, absolutely massive. So like, I would say that 5-round 2-day event people are in the very smallest percentage of people that you'd normally find. So that's great news. 3,000 players worldwide. That's pretty good. And take a good example would be to just, if we take a look at the FAQ video that I did yesterday, the FAQ video where I just kind of talked about the changes with the FAQ. That's currently, at time of recording, around 14,000 views. 14,000 people, maybe they're not all, like maybe there's a couple of repeats, but ultimately 10,000 plus, maybe 12,000 plus. And that's only in a day. So I expect that number to go up a little bit more. People who are actively interested in FAQ updates, which most casual people aren't even bothered about. So there's a lot of people who are into this hobby, which I think is very exciting. All right, so our next bit of data here, this shows the changing size of events. This has been something me and Rob have been really interested in, especially. I'm not sure there's anyone else in the world in any of the TTRPG, well, the kind of miniature style war games that are really tracking this data, because this is something we're fascinated about. I run a venue here in Nottingham, the TSN Arena. We've got tickets. So I have an Age of Sigmar event every month. If you want to come, 24 people. I have a sold out 24-person event coming up just this weekend. So it's Thursday today in a couple of days, which is very exciting. But we are seeing the largest event shifted to more medium-sized last year. However, those have moved again, resulting in the rise of small local events. So here you can see the changing shape. 25-26 is significantly different to what we saw from 23-24 and 24-25. Big change, I would say, in the state of the game. Now, this is for several different reasons. Generally, the costs of running events, organizing events are significantly higher. They really are. With every venue trying to pay its money back, the event spaces are becoming more and more expensive. So doing those at any particular scale is hard. And those events that are trying to do stuff at scale, and if they're not selling out, they're losing a lot of money. Ultimately, running events is a huge amount of labor, and those people who run them should be paid in most cases. So we're seeing that trend towards more events more often, but they're at a smaller scale. I think that's great. I think it's really good. It's really good for the consumer, you, the consumer. Now, you're a Warhammer consumer, so you're not making the best life choices anyway. No offense, I'm also a Warhammer consumer, so we're the same. Sorry about that. We'll all take a moment to process that. But having events be better for us, so that maybe they're cheaper, or maybe they don't cost as much, they don't take as far to go. We're actually really lucky. I'm going to try and make a video about this in the future, but actually, Warhammer events are incredibly cheap, like wholesale. Now you're going to say, no, Rob, it's $60, or no, Rob, it's like 50 quid where I am. No. Compared to other hobbies, other things, and how much they've increased, especially factoring in inflation. Me and Rob had a chat about this the other day. Factoring in inflation, the price of Warhammer tickets is crazy cheap. So you're kind of living in a golden age. If you end up with more events more locally, but the prices aren't really going up, you're in a solid place. So that's a really interesting stat. I don't know if this is AOS only, but I do think it really showcases that what AOS players want to do is they want to play Age of Sigmar. They don't necessarily want to go to the big event to get some fake internet points, for rankings or anything like that. What they want to do is they want to go take their models and go play games with other people. And that's actually really healthy. Also, more grassroots, smaller events that you see from some of the smaller communities, like Portugal had a 2-day event last year. Philippines is a good example as well. Bolivia getting more and more 2-day events in. You'll start to grow the scene and grow the community to a significant degree where, yes, larger scale events are possible, but more regular events means you're going to be building up those communities as well. So Age of Sigmar is getting a grassroots following, and I think that's actually really interesting. So, okay. So that's the changing size of events. So another thing that I think is really informative about how armies are doing are the battle plans that people are playing and what gets chosen. As I predicted, week 1, I'd just like to throw this out right here. Noxious Nexus and Paths of the Fae, both of those two, are the least chosen battle plans, which is exactly what I called out when I did my review on the very first week. I was like, no one's choosing those because they're not as good. Actually, Noxious Nexus being picked is actually crazy in my opinion. And then you can see you've got a pretty good spread of battle plans. Grasp of Thorns and Cyclic Shifts are kind of in that second tier. And Life Roots are all in that second tier of not too bothered. So the most common chosen battle plans are Surge of Slaughter, Roiling Roots, Bountiful, Equinox, Link Ley Lines, Passing Seasons, Life Cycle, and Creeping Corruption. What this means is this produces a impact on what the meta looks like anyway. Now, luckily, unlike other GHBs, we've actually ended up with a pretty good spread of battle plans with quite a lot of objectives on the table. This is, in my opinion, the best way to play. Obviously, we had in the first year of 3rd edition, you ended up with all objectives basically being in the middle and Gargants having a 70% win rate. So having objectives more spread out, and also because in this GHB we have the linked objectives, we have different primary points as well, which I think is quite interesting for on each different battle plan. So they're quite different. So having them all having these very disparate battle plans means that I think the battle plans are having the least impact that we've seen on armies' performances than we've ever seen before. That's not the same for battle tactics. Battle tactics, I'm pretty certain we are seeing armies dictated by the most chosen or the most common battle tactics for sure, which we don't have data on this time around, but hopefully we can come back to that and we'll do that in the future. All right, now we're going to look at the meta representation. And we can see that Stormcast Eternal is still the most popular faction, but actually Skaven in second place is crazy. This is worth talking about something called the production meta, and I'm sure many people who've listened to me talk about this before. The production meta is how long it takes you to build and paint your models. Skaven came out, or not, Skaven didn't just come out, but Skaven as models, Skaven Tide Box, launched summer last year. I would say a year and a bit is an okay amount of time for most casual hobbyists to build and paint most of their armies and put it on the tabletop. That's quite a lot of models to potentially do. Now, obviously, they could be a little bit faster than that, and we obviously have seen that. But I think the increasing rise of Skaven is due to that factor. That's what I think it is. There's lots of Skaven models out there, and the same is true for Stormcast Eternals, but they are also the poster children of the game. A big shout out to Slaves of Darkness, who were vying for that kind of top spot last year, but they've kind of dropped off a little bit. But those 3 factions up there, I'm unsurprised to see. Soulblight Gravelords also unsurprised to see that as well. They are very cool. They're very popular. They're very funky. There's so many ways to build and play them. I think they're instantly recognizable to new players. Someone's like, yeah, I'll play skeletons. Oh, what? A vampire and a dragon? Yeah, I'll take that. That makes a lot of sense. Same with Slaves of Darkness, I think. Gits up there, even though they've got a really high meta rep, they do not have necessarily a high win rate. But that's because Gits are just cool and very, very popular. Now, KO. You Kharadron Overlords for sure normally rock around this section of society. They're a kind of disciples of Tzeentch, Slaanesh, normally kind of a Deepkin, Daughters of Cain, 2%. They're the 2%ers is what I call them. They're definitely an army that you don't normally see rocking around the 4% mark in the meta. That's because they're too good, as we saw from the balance patch yesterday. They're too good. 60-something% win rate, 4.5% of the meta. That's going to drastically drop off, which also means their win rate is also going to drop off as well. They currently have an inflated win rate. What do I mean by that? Right now, they are the best path to victory for a tournament gamer. This data is only based on tournament games. So a tournament gamer is going to pick, I'll play KO. That is the army that will do the best at an event. So they grab it, they pick it up, and they play it. Now, tournament gamers, I'm talking specifically about like an upper echelon of tournament gamer. They're just better than the other players, but they also pick the broken armies. So they have this kind of weird place in our stats and in our psyche, because it's not someone like Carson who plays ogres. He plays a mid-tier army, but he also does well with them all the time because he's a great player. It's normally great players also pick great armies, which is part of being a great player, I really do think. And then they end up just doing better. So not only will the win rate come down for Gloomspite for Kharadron Overlords because of the nerfs, also the people playing them will stop playing them and move on to something else. So it will then go even lower. Even lower. A good example would be this: as once it emerged, thank you to Rob in the chat. Once it emerged that KO was super too good, more KO games were played in September than Stormcast Eternals. So I expect both the meta representation to go down to 2%, and I think the win rate will that is artificially inflated will also artificially decrease. So I expect a big drop off for KO, but I still think they're a very playable faction. I just want to point that out. Okay, so that's the meta rep. But then we got cities. Again, same situation is going to occur for them. 4.5%. I think you're going to see that drop off. Mankin, Nurgle, Seraphon. Let's talk about the armies that aren't played a lot. At the bottom, you got Hedonites to Sinesh. Realistically, Games Workshop haven't given anyone a reason to play them. They are fragile. They're really tough to build and paint. They have got some great centerpiece models that are basically useless, and they don't really have a vibe. They got no vibe. So they're down there. It's sad to see them down there. I think they're very cool. Tzeentch, also, it's just a complex army. We saw people move into Zangors a little bit recently. People normally buy, I think most people buy into Tzeentch for Lords of Change and Horrors. That's my hot take. I think whenever Zangor become prominent, Tzeentch players go, nah, I'll play something else. Generally, is kind of my hot take. It feels like things like, Enlightened on Discs of Tzeentch or Skyfires or Zangors are the things that they paint kind of because they have to, not because they necessarily want to. Obviously, there'll be some people who do. So right now, you're in a Zangor meta for Tzeentch. They're not as popular. I think that's the situation. Ogres and Fireslayers, I expect them to be down there as well. But Fireslayer's got that great soggy update in the summer. So you can take a ton of Magma Droths. People have been running around with those and having a great time. Also, this is a pretty nice spread. Sometimes we normally have factions like last year we had Stormcast and Slaves of Darkness at like 10% each. It's a great spread. Look at the split. Like, come on. That's great. Like, you've got a real, like, there's only one army that's really, really, like, not getting the pick. Everyone else is seeing some play. This is actually a good vibe. This also means if you go to an event, you're going to play a lot of different armies. And that's actually really good because that's what you want to do, I assume, play against lots of different armies. Not Sons of Behemoth, obviously. So that's a better rep. Okay, so now we're going to go into the win rates. And I covered this yesterday as well. Kharadron Overlords, 63%, Cities and Cruel Boys. Obviously, KO, I think, is kind of like maybe 4 or 5% over what it should be because of that player expression or player skill expression kind of correction at the top. So I think that they should be more around that region. Same for Cities as well. And Cruel Boys, like, same as well. Like I know if my friend Owen is jumping into a faction, I know they got some juice in the tank. DOK up here. Now I read all the comments on the FAQ video yesterday. A lot of people being like, "No, Rob, we have lost 2 units," or "My list has gone up 200 points." Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I'm going to be doing a tier list after this video. So you'll kind of you'll see my thoughts on what these armies and how they're going to perform. But all of these got slammed. All of these got slammed. LRL, everyone in the comments thinks that they got slammed. I don't agree that they got slammed. I think they're in a great position right now to kind of like smash at the top. That's my hot take. Nighthorn, Flesh Eater Courts up here as well. I think that they're still, Flesh Eater Courts maybe got a little too hammered. I reckon. I think that was maybe them and Ogres is the most egregious of what we saw from the FAQs yesterday. Jumping down to the bottom though, Sylvaneth Angels, Gloomspite, Gitz, Seraphon. This Gitz pick, this is the harshest one in my opinion. So if we just go and look at Gitz again, Gitz have got like a very popular, they're 4.8% of the meta. So they're like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth most popular army, and they got this low win rate. Now that's, I don't know how to just, how do you say that the win rate's low because the players are lunatics without saying it? I don't know how to say it. Gitz players don't care about if they're winning, right? They just want to boing around, right? they want to go woo with their little cars, right, and their chariots. So more than any, and same with dinosaur players. Dinosaur players are like, I'm dinosaurs on dinosaurs. I love trains. They like test really well on certain tests. Their parents took a lot of paracetamol. Right? So that's what the dinosaur crew are doing. So they don't really care either. Right? So I think those win rates are artificially low. I don't think they're the worst armies to play by any stretch of the imagination. I think Ironjaws are. I think Ironjaws is a really tough army to play. They haven't been given all of the toys, right? But Gloomspite Gits and Seraphon is like a player thing. Like, I'm gonna say it now. Even though personally I don't want to play Seraphon. I put Seraphon on the board maybe a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago. Did not enjoy the experience. I thought they didn't have the tools. They didn't really play. It wasn't super reactive. Maybe some points drops that we've seen now. Maybe the soggy updates. Maybe we got a little bit more, but that's what that is. But I'll cover that more in the tier list. But this is why we saw points changes up and down. Ogres makes no sense. Ogres got straight slammed. We're talking about this a lot in my Discord, which is via my Patreon if you want to support me. But we're talking about a lot of this about this in the Discord. Obviously, this is a one-man nerf problem. This is Carson, and I'd never like begrudge Carson for playing ogres, but the points adjustments that we saw for ogres felt really unfair. They weren't even close to playing around this kind of top category of gaming, which I thought was odd. Skaven at a 50% win rate, I think, is actually a bit of a red flag as well. Or like, you know, it's a bit disingenuous because, again, their meta representation is so high. Lots of new people have joined Age of Sigmar jumping in with Skaven. They're a super cool faction. They've got lots going for them. They're very, very popular. So I think Skaven are a much better army. And again, the tier list will hopefully cover that. So they got points reductions, points increases, which I thought was, points... what did they get? They got points reductions. No, they got some points increases across the board, which I thought was, I thought that was fine because I think Skaven are actually kind of around this Lumineth Realm Lords tier around here. So that's what I reckon. So yeah, this is what the game looked like. The FAQ needed to happen, and the FAQ needed to bring some of these armies in. Like, if you didn't watch the Age of Sigmar, like the stat show that I did on Monday, it was depressing. It was like KO, 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 KO. I was like, I don't know if I could have handled that for another couple of months. So it was really necessary. And again, if you're feeling salty about it or you're bothered, I'm really sorry about that. That sucks for you for shoresies. All right, so our next stat, this is the one that we do on the Honest Wargame. I think it's only our stat, the positive win rate potential. You go to an event, how likely is your army to get more wins than it is get losses? That's what the PWRP is. So Seraphon, you lose more games than you win. So 34% of the time you win more games than you lose, but you're obviously 16% below like the average or the median. Whereas KO, 70% of the time, right? 70% of the time you have at least a 3-2. That's bananas, right? Everything should be rocking around the 50% mark on this stat, right? That's what should be happening. It should just be, because when that number is around 70%, that means it's the army doing the job, especially when you combo that with meta representation. So if we just take a moment to go back and look, a meta representation for Kharadron Overlords was 4%. Okay, 4%. Gloomspite Gits is 4.8%. Okay, the difference between them is nearly 35%. 37% for Gloomspite Gits, 70% for KO. Okay, it's not that, and again, the Gits players, little out there as people. It's not that the Gits players are so much worse, magnitudes worse than KO players. It's that the KO army is magnitudes better than the Gits army, right? So that's something worth looking at, and this is the correct information for really analyzing how to play with an army and how chill an army is. If you want to play at the local club, you know, kind of, I think anything over 55%, you start to really ask yourself, is that a fun army to play against? And then anything below, kind of, I think below like 40%, you start to ask yourselves, why is it on the table? I mean, the big news, I mean, the rise and fall of Slaves to Darkness really needs to be discussed, right? I think that's crazy. Like, from pretty much in every tournament, in every list, at every army you had to play against being Slaves to Darkness in the last GHB, to just absolutely falling off the map this GHB is kind of an interesting telltale kind of situation. And I immediately put that down to the battle plans. I think it's a battle plan situation. I think it's more just diverse and spread out battle plans than with objectives than we had in the last GHB. That's what I'm going to put that to. Taking a look at the meta rep over time, you can see that at the top of each graph is the name of the faction, and below it is the rate over time. So for Cities of Sigmar, we can see that they've become slightly more popular over the time. Flesh Eater Courts have had a significant immediate lift post the new book. Kharadron Overlords have had an aggressive lift since their new book came out, and their win rate obviously spiked as well. Everything else has maintained, I would say, a pretty nice level. Stormcast Eternals, just down here, sorry, you can see Stormcast Eternals slowly dropping off, and Sylvaneth slowly meandering. And I assume we're going to see a big Sylvaneth uptick, which are normally a pretty popular faction when we end up seeing a new book release as well. Slaves of Darkness dropping off more and more, but not overly, I would say. And some armies like Deepkin didn't really, if we compare Deepkin and Kharadron Overlords, who got books around the same time, you did not see the lift for Deepkin that you saw for KO. What's the reason? It's because this is tournament data. And tournament data is based on what people have taken to events. I think Deepkin is still a super popular faction. Lots of people want to play them, but maybe they didn't own them beforehand. Maybe they just thought KO was an easier pick, or maybe everyone has just waited for KO to be something that they've wanted, and they've just dived straight in. Could be either of those two. It could be any of those two, really. So if you are either of those two examples that I've talked about, please do let me know. So that's a meta rep over time. And then we can see the win rate over time. And it is very frenetic. Very frenetic. Let's take a look at Cruel Boys over here. Big spike up since the new GHB, kind of maintained, plateaued, and now it's been slammed a little bit. We're probably going to see that drop off. Flesh Eater Courts all over the place. Cities of Sigmar on this meteoric rise since the summer, and we got that soggy update. And then we saw a drop off. Sometimes we didn't have any data because no one was playing Sinesh, so you've ended up with something weird over here. Then you see Ogre Moor tribes. At one point, people thought maybe they could play Ogres, and I expect Ogres to meta rep to go down again. Again, a crime what they did to Ogres. A very slow and gradual decline for Maggotkin. Very entropic. Just slowly melting away out of existence, which is sad. And then Git's kind of like floating around, being popular all the time. Like I said, people are only really going to jump into Gits when Gits are super strong. And actually, since the update yesterday, I think Gits might be back in a really big way. Okay, we're now going to take a moment to look at our last sheet. So now we have a graph. Shout out to Rob for doing this. This graphic shows the 3 best and worst battle plans for a faction. And please remember that as some of these battle plans have been played only a very few times by each faction. So I'm going to let you just kind of like, again, these will be on the Discord, and I think we're posting them on the website. So thehonestwargamer.com, go check that out. Also available from us, loads of faction stuff, t-shirts, tokens, all sorts of things if you fancy going and looking at it. This looks like a GTA cheat code section for sure. So these are the battle plans that you're good at and the battle plans that you're bad at. And again, in some cases, not as many. But Blazicorn, like 49%, you can see that they love Bountiful Equinox, Grasp of Thorns, Roiling Roots, but Creeper Corruption, Cyclic Shifts, and Link Ley Lines. Now, they don't like those. And this is something teams or team event people will especially love, because for some reason, team events still pair into battle plans, still a terrible choice all these years later. So that's all the data that we've got to kind of have like a post-analysis, like a post-mortem of where the game was. What's exciting is the next video that I'll be doing will be a tier list, and that will be about where the game is going, which I think is really fun. And I think we are in a really fun place. We've got a whole new army on the rise. We have Christmas coming up, and I am expecting GW to do another big series of like updates and new things for AOS around that Christmas time as well. So actually, next 3 months, and most people don't play over the December period, so those updates will be really leading us into like January and February, which is fun. So I think it's a very exciting time for AOS, and event data proves that more and more people are playing, which I think is solid as well. I think Age of Sigmar has always been a community-led, ever since they released a game with no points and we made our own points up. Then they didn't do missions well, so we made up our own missions. Then they didn't do terrain well, so we made our own terrain up. And over time, Games Workshop have incorporated those elements into their game system. So the game system's got better and better because of the community, and more events, I think, is great as well. So I'm excited. I think the next few weeks are going to be really cool. The next few months are going to be very cool. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what the meta looks like over the next few months. It's going to take a while for people to, like I'm running an event this weekend using all of the new updated battle plan stuff. All the new battle scroll points in effect and all the rules updates. But in England, at least, there's an event called the LGT, which has got 75 people who are all playing the old meta. So we know what's probably going to do well in that meta now, which I think is great. But we don't need to. It's over. Now we've got the future to look forward to. So let me know what you're excited about. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all soon. Bye.